to the world. www.cityworldradio.com.
Gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time once again for the Johnny Mandolin Show, broadcasting live on City World Radio Network. We have cigar night tonight. I have Artie in the house and Dean, and we're going to be talking cigars. So light up your favorite stogie and get ready for some good talk and good times as we talk cigars here on the Johnny Mandolin Show on City World Radio Network. Our theme song, Anello's Blues, bringing us to another Johnny Mandolin Show here on City World Radio Network. Hope everybody's doing good. I want to welcome all my listeners from all over. Thanks for your great emails this week. We're having fun, and I love doing radio. I want to say hi to my friend Phil out in Los Angeles, a longtime listener, Kathy, our friends in Las Vegas, and also in Miami who have been writing to us and talking about the show, in Chicago, and in Cleveland. We love to hear from you, and also our friends in Sicily, in Palermo, and in Rome. Benvenuto, grazie, ascolta. Thank you for listening. And also to our friends in Moscow and Serbia and Brazil and everywhere else that they're writing in and saying, we love your show. I appreciate it. So to the mic, without any further ado, I'm going to bring two gentlemen. The first gentleman has already been on once before, a cigar expert, and is affiliated with the Cigar and many great places, and that's Artie, Cigar Artie. How you doing?
Hey, how are you guys? Glad to be back.
Glad you're here. And my good friend Dean, my cigar smoking buddy, who has a tour group he's going to talk about.
New York City Cigar Adventures.
Right. So we're here, and I have to tell you that we have a lot of listeners who smoke cigars, the Brotherhood of the Leaf, and we just really have a good time running around New York City to different lounges and clubs and having fun and hanging out, and it's a really great life and great time. I was at a place called the Cigar Inn, which is in the Upper East Side in Manhattan, and I ran into Artie, who I hadn't seen in a while, and that was a really nice night.
Yeah. So you stopped by. Cigar Inn's actually, like you mentioned, Upper East Side, East 73rd. It's a very great place, great humidor. We have over like 1,000 facings over there, and it's also a little bit like more relaxed feel. So we actually have 2 places. Have you ever been to our Midtown store?
Oh, many times, sure.
Yeah, so Midtown, that's on around 2nd Avenue and East 53rd. That place is a little more high energy, right? That's where you want to go if you're ready to party. But if you want to like just chat, relax, do some business, come to our East 73rd spot. That's where it's a little bit more like relaxed. And that's where actually you came in, and you came in, got your little bit of alcohol, your nice cigar, and I just saw you hanging out. You know what I mean?
That's what I love to do.
That's the best.
It truly is. And Dean, tell us a little bit about your group and what you're doing these days.
Okay, so I really embraced the cigar world about 4 years ago. I've been a cigar smoker for many years, but I realized that the camaraderie I've been looking for a lot of my life I find in cigar bars and cigar lounges and so forth, and also the relaxation of just sitting outside and smoking a cigar, listening to some music. So as the anal retentive person I am, I'd write down any new place I went to, and I've compiled a list of cigar bars, which is limited in New York. You had to be grandfathered in back in the Giuliani days. Lounges, which tend to be cigar stores that have a lounge area. And then in the summer here, with the rebirth of hotel bars and rooftop bars, there are some really great ones. And there are clubs here in New York. No, you don't have to pay for them. But one of them is called Rooftop Cigars, and you're on the mailing list. And they have several rooftop cigar events during the year, during the nice months. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And our good friend Bob DiRusso, who has the Friendly Cigars, it's on meetup.com. And about once or twice a month we meet up. And I've met most of my really good cigar friends, including Dean, through this group. So thank you, Bob DiRusso, for that. And you're right. It's a real place to just chill and enjoy. And
well, I do for myself what I call cigar tourism. It's like if I'm going to travel, and I love taking road trips, I am now like basing it on, going to a place and first finding out what cigar venues there are, bars or lounges, and aiming for that. And I've found it. The Casa de Monte Cristo bought Cigar Inn, and they're doing that all over the country, buying established cigar lounges and cigar bars, and co-branding with them. Like yours is Casa de Monte Cristo by
right.
Cigar Inn.
So actually, close. It's Cigar Inn by Casa de Monte Cristo. Yeah. So
and it was formerly just Cigar Inn.
Exactly.
Right.
So that was about 3 years ago, and they have 20 locations across the U.S. And like I said, the popularity of cigars has definitely increased over the last couple of years. So this kind of move by a company like Monte Cristo makes perfect sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're trying to get their name out there. Having a location, a place like Manhattan, or a place, place like Boca Raton in Florida. It's great. It's great to have.
Casa de Monte Cristo, I think, now has 5 locations in the west, around West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, that area. My history with cigars is it became fashionable during the dot-com boom of the late 90s and early 2000s. And I kind of pushed myself to get into it to be hip. But then when the dot-com bust happened, I realized that I really loved cigars. But I would say that this trend that you're talking about now is not a bubble. It's really people just realizing I'm
it's
a
here to
cigar
stay.
smoker. Yeah, and I'm, and the maturing, I think, also of Dominican and Honduran and Nicaraguan alternatives to, I remember I used to pull like twigs out of cigars, from non-Cuban places.
The last 15 years, it's almost, I got to say, most people agree with me. The Nicaraguan tobacco, Dominican and Honduran tobacco, like you said, has gotten better than the Cuban tobacco.
And, if today America took the ban off, there would not be a huge rush to Cuban cigars. And I wouldn't have said that 15 years ago, but definitely not.
Well, here's the thing. So I agree and disagree at the same time. Let me tell you why. The thing is that once you lift the ban, right, there's a lot of mysticism around Cubans here in the U.S.
Right, of course. It'll be the initial.
So even people that don't smoke cigars will want to try a Cuban cigar, because for some reason they think nowadays it's almost like committing treason when it's really nothing. Yeah. So and if you give them the opportunity, they'll really jump on it, and that might actually create a whole new wave of smokers here in the U.S. But here's the issue, and honestly, as a cigar smoker and collector, I dread the day when this happens, and I'll explain to you why. Cuba's an extremely small island. Right, not a lot of space, and they pretty much supply all the tobacco for the whole rest of the world, other than the U.S. The majority of it, right? And even though the U.S. alone has a bigger market than the rest of the world combined, right? That's why all these domestic companies are able to keep up with this Cuban market. So once the U.S. opens up, it's going to become even worse for the rest of the world, because these prices are going to skyrocket. And
but that'll then diminish demand for Cubans. They'll be price sensitive.
Well, not even that. It also they'll try to probably double or triple production, so the quality will go down.
And that's my big problem with Cubans, as I've explored, and I have a good friend who's a journalist and goes 3 or 4 times a year, is inconsistency. A socialist country doesn't have the quality control of more capitalist, and it's not consistent.
What I always tell people, one of the easiest ways to tell if your Cubans are real or not is if a quarter of them don't pull or pull like shit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's how you know they're real Cubans. You know what I mean?
How many times have poked Cubans come on, give me some draw.
So, Artie, what's going on in the cigar world right now? What changes or what new things are you seeing? What's the big focus?
Well, right now, unfortunately, it's as far as the creative soul of the cigar industry, I feel is a bit stagnating. And that is absolutely not the fault of any of the producers, the growers. It's just these new laws that have here in the U.S. where making new lines of cigars and new brands is much more difficult because there's this whole process where you have to get it approved by the FDA that costs money and time. So a lot of blenders are doing is they're kind of digging through their cigar graveyard and pulling out things that existed, reintroducing them into the market. Now, there's sometimes they're reblending them a little bit, right? They're not usually saying that, but they are doing it. They might change the binder, they might change the wrapper. That's all just because of the supply that they have right now, right? So you may get small changes, but mostly what you're seeing is a resurgence of older brands, older lines, and nothing really new coming out. The couple of things that have come out that are new have been actually really, really nice. You know what I mean? But it's just so few in number that it's kind of like a little irritating.
Yeah, I know that they're trying to tax and ban premium cigars, and it's just crazy. You get all this government restriction in, and it just impedes on your First Amendment right, among other things. Your right to smoke.
Yeah, I mean, it's what they're doing is they're not particularly. It's difficult to explain. They're not making it like illegal to do this. They're just making it so difficult that people are just shying away from it.
Well, that's what they're doing with everything.
It sucks.
Whatever you love that they can regulate. But luckily, we do have in New York. We have a couple of great cigar bars and cigar lounges that we can go to. And as Dean was saying, as he experiments more and more and he does his tours, there are really nice places to go in New York City. And I have to point out that I only go between New York and California because I work bi-coastally. So I'm in Orange County, California, south of Los Angeles, and there's a wonderful cigar lounge there called Club Aficionado. Angela runs this beautiful place. It's got a full bar, it's got a full restaurant, a full humidor, a Club Aficionado. It's in Lake Forest, California. So if you're looking for a cigar bar, a cigar place out there, that's where you go. But here, let's talk about some of our favorite ones. Of course, Carnegie Club is where we usually rendezvous.
So New York, the cigar bars are mostly upscale. There's 5 plus Grand Havana Room, which is completely private, and you have to get invited and sponsored, and still takes 2 years. But anyway, so Carnegie Club is just so friendly, no matter who you are or what you are. I mean, it's higher price. Cocktails are in the $15 range or whatever, but I can always start a conversation there, and that is what I've been looking for. It's like, my whole life is just go to a bar by myself and have great conversations. And cigar smokers love to talk, and we still somehow mostly can modulate talking politics, religion, whatever. It's like somehow there's a common ground.
Yeah, that's really true. I have to say I've been I've been to many cigar bars, and everybody I meet, and people come from all colors and classes. And I mean, I was talking to one guy who was a heart surgeon, and the guy next to me was a plumber. And the three of us, we were having this great discussion about cigars, and actually we wound up talking about the heart versus plumbing. It's not that different.
Right. And, I'm an openly gay man. I'm 60 years old, so it's not just being gay, but it's also being from a certain generation. And I am mostly completely accepted in the cigar world.
Yeah, it's like if you love a good cigar, and obviously if you're stumbling drunk in there, you're not going to be welcomed. But if you love a good cigar and you can talk about the things you love, most people are pretty open to it. And I know Artie was talking about the Cigar Inn. I've been to both, and I've always found it to be really very friendly. And I mean, you'll bump into people there who are just there. Maybe they have their own bottle. I'm there 10 minutes. Somebody's pouring me a drink.
At your 73rd Street, 2 weeks ago, I sat with like 7 firefighters.
Yeah.
Just talking. It was a group of men that I would never normally talk to. And I have to say, in my world, I kind of knew that Trump could win because I traveled and I would go to different bars and cigar bars. I would talk to, Hispanic people and working class people and everything. And I actually heard what they had to say. Whereas, if you stay in New York, you just get that elite conversation.
Yeah, it's a different world out there. Artie, let me ask you, when you see your clientele in Cigar Inn, have you noticed any change, or is there any trends you're spotting in terms of, because I've seen a lot of women come in too.
So here's one very interesting thing, and this is awesome. So I started about 10 years ago, and this is what would happen. Let's say a gentleman would walk in with his girlfriend, and they would kind of be picking out, he'd be looking around for a cigar to smoke, and she would kind of just be standing there waiting for him. And, I would be like, hey, maybe like a nice little acid for the lady. You can smoke with your woman, have a good time together. And he would almost like answer for her, you know what I mean? Like, no, she's good. She doesn't smoke, you know what I mean? And it was kind of like, now we're looking about 10 years later. I feel like I don't see that much anymore, and it's great. Like, you see guys coming in with their girlfriends, their wives, smoking together, enjoying. You see groups of women. Right. They come from the bar. They walk in. They have a great time. It's like
a shared hobby.
Yeah.
A cigar smoker wants a girlfriend or a wife that can smoke with him as someone
Absolutely.
who's a hiker wants a companion that can hike with them.
Absolutely. It's just another hobby to bring you two together. You know what I mean? So that is absolutely true. I do see it being way more accepting to women. Another thing that's really interesting, and you guys touched on this, I just want to elaborate a little, is the great amount of variety of people that come in. You'll get, like you guys said, everybody from every walk of life. And I think that's what makes it so interesting from somebody that actually works in the retail store. It's like that, that soup that they're talking about. You know what I mean? Like just everybody melded together, and it's quite a beautiful thing. When people from the outside think of cigars, they have this view that it's some sort of like guy with a monocle, guy with his pinky up. You know what I mean? Like, smoking my cigar, fancy. But in reality, the people that go there that do have a lot of money that you would expect to be like that, they don't go there for the snobby, monocle. And they go there because they want to get away from all that high energy, high power world. Have a sit to smoke a cigar next to, like you said, a plumber, and discuss, hey, my thing's clogged. What can I do about that?
But I must say, as a 6-year-old Jewish suburban, kid from this a Jewish kid, so it was basically big Italian and Jewish men with their cigars all day long in their Cadillacs. That was the stereotype we had, and my brother and I didn't want to have anything to do with that. And then, as I said, in the late 90s, when it's like both of us realized, it's like, we really like this. We really do. And the stereotype, did it change? I don't know if it changed, but stereotypes really, are roadblocks to sometimes realizing who you really are.
No, don't get me wrong. There's still like that old guard. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. But what I'm saying is the reason that I enjoy my job so much is for not those guys, because those guys, like for instance, one of my favorite parts is taking the customer into the humidor, giving him the tour, helping him pick out a cigar, picking his brain, he picks my brain, or she, excuse me, you know what I mean? And it goes both ways, and it's nice. It's actually, I enjoy it a lot, that's why I like my job. But these old guard, like I said, call them, like the old guys, not old age, but kind of like style.
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
Yeah,
right,
so I don't want to
yeah.
discriminate against older
No,
people.
right.
So what I'm trying to say is that they don't really care. They're so stuck in their ways that they go in, they go out. They don't want to know your opinion. They don't want to tell you their opinion. They have their cigar that they smoke every day, and those guys have a good time too. But the guys that I like to focus on is the people that are like looking to explore the cigar world, like me, and that demographic has definitely increased. You know what I mean? I've been seeing a lot more novice smokers, and I see absolutely nothing wrong with that. I say bring them on. Let's learn about cigars together. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's great. I've learned, my entire education has been from a cigar lounge, or hanging out with people and say, I started very young with my grandfather, my Sicilian grandfather, who gave me a cigar at 12 years old and said, fumare, smoke it. And I'm 12, sta shut up, smoke. Fumare. So I've been doing it a long time, and little by little I discovered more of what I liked, and as you experiment, you find what you like.
Can I ask you one quick question? So you said your grandfather. Now, so this is back in Italy?
No, this is in America.
In the U.S.? Did he inhale? Because
no.
Or no?
No, he just puffed. But he, it's so funny because back in those days, he had the White Owl and the Dutch Masters.
Yeah.
He thought those were great cigars.
So my grandfather, I have a picture of him. I don't know him. He died when I was young, but I have this picture of him with a cigar in his hand in a double-breasted suit, and probably from the 40s, or 50s and whatever, and. So I didn't know him, but I love cigars. I love double-breasted suits, and we both drink strong black tea with sugar and milk. Even though I never knew he did that, it's interesting how some of those things are baked into you.
It truly is. It's in my family. We're Sicilian, and I know my grandfather. Luckily, he was the one who really raised me a lot of the time because my father was a jazz musician out on the road working with very famous people. So. I was just alone, myself and my kid, a kid in the city. So I had my grandfather there to teach me all the stuff, including Italian, but also cigars. But I graduated from Dutch Masters and White Owl. But
these blunts. I never understood blunts because you have to inhale. Cigar tobacco or tobacco. I never understood blunts.
It's not as bad as you think.
Really?
Honestly. Yeah. So sometimes I even use. So I roll my own cigars, and I have. All different grades, even Fronto leaf, and sometimes I use that to roll. It's fine. You can inhale that; it's not a big deal. But that's the interesting thing. So you guys seem to have like a little bit of history with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Me, not at all. Like my family was very strict. I'm Eastern European, so alcohol was really the thing. Not really smoking cigars. I'm kind of like the black sheep. You know what I mean? Like it's like everybody's like lawyers. Kind of a doctor. Accountants, and then there's this cigar guy. You know what I mean?
It's all right. We like you. I'm glad you are.
But you're the doctor of cigars.
Yeah. No.
He's knowledgeable. Speaking of knowledgeable, we had a good conversation earlier. You were talking about new tobaccos coming in, and in particular, what's going on in Brazil.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So well, not particularly new. Maybe that's how I worded it. Let me just. Explain.
Better.
Yeah. So Brazilian tobacco has been around, but I feel like recently it's being more utilized in cigars, and there's even Brazilian puros, which is just purely Brazilian tobacco, which are fantastic. It's a very dark, usually very like earthy and chocolatey tobacco. It reminds me a lot of actually Florida tobacco that's been being pumped out recently in the last decade. So it's nice because what you're seeing is. Normally, it started with Cuba, right? Cuba was actually the island where cigar-grade tobacco originated from. Tobacco was all across the Americas, except Cuba had the cigar-grade. And then it spread, obviously to the DR, Nicaragua, Honduras, but they never actually, were able to catch up. But recently, the quality is just tremendous. You know what I mean? They're actually making it into such a craft where you're seeing places like Honduras, Brazil, even Indonesian Sumatra leaves and Cameroon leaves. U.S. leaves like the Connecticut broadleaf.
But ultimately, isn't the volcanic soil of Cuba plus the climate ultimately what defines a Cuban?
Yeah, the 3 S's: the sun, the soil, and the seed. But the thing is that if you're talking about volcanic soil, Nicaragua has a very volcanic soil, and also Indonesia is pretty much one giant volcano. So that's probably, I would say, I love Indonesian Sumatra tobacco. It's
great. Please give me one, and I will try it.
Absolutely no problem. No problem.
He wants a handout.
No. Listen,
I just want to experiment. I love experimentation.
That's it. That's what I'm talking about, and that's why I roll, because the experimentation is so exciting. Being able to hold the leaf, smell it, nibble on it a little, whatever. I can even roll you a little cigar that you can just taste it by itself, and all that is so tremendously fun. It's like cooking. It's
Yeah, but what I've learned is I don't have a memory for it, so I actually email myself. If someone gives me a cigar and I like it, I email, or they tell me try this. I email myself, so the next day when I'm, that I can look it up and so forth, because it's it's like wine. It really is. It's like wine.
There's that's the one thing about tobacco that I find so interesting. Even people that are really kind of novices to it don't really know the complexity of what's going on behind the cigar. They kind of think like a bunch of leaves, they put them in a barn for a while, then they roll them up and sell them. But there is just such a variety and such a huge world out there of exactly what it takes from start to finish. What goes into a cigar that it will blow your mind. And honestly, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I feel like still it's like a drop in the bucket what I know compared to what's out there.
And what's amazing is every really good premium cigar is handmade.
Yeah. So there's the actual definition of premium is not particularly the handmade part. There's tolamante a mano, which is totally rolled by hand, which is start to finish, other than the use of a mold to give it the proper shape. It is by hand, but there are also premium cigars that have long filler tobaccos that are semi-rolled by hand. What I mean by that, it's like the sliding lever machine where you pack the tobacco by hand, but
that's our doorbell. People want to come in all the time.
Welcome. So, and then they kind of like use it. It's almost like it's similar to what sushi chefs use to make a sushi roll, right?
Those bamboo rolls.
But it's similar to that, and they just kind of do a quick motion, and it rolls up the tube for you. So that's still premium, but it's not completely by hand. So there are two different schools of.
But they're not machine made, as in short filler and like a cigarette.
Yeah. No, they're not. And to be honest with you, I have had some good short filler cigars. They're usually better priced, so you kind of get what you expect. Like for instance, as far as Cubans go, there's a company called Por Laranaga, and they're very popular for thinner cigars. And the thinner cigars are usually sometimes short filler, and they're great. I call them the poor man's Cohiba because that's what they taste like, but they're like $2 each.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's not always a bad thing, but usually it's when it becomes bad is when it's used to cut corners.
Yeah,
right. When it's good is when it's just like they have the scraps left over from the leaf, and they're just trying to like roll them up and sell them for $1, because that is premium tobacco. Right? People that are rolling only short filler cigars, they usually don't take the time to ferment it and age it and make it go through the process to make it as delicious as possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's be careful. It could be good, it could be bad, depends.
Yeah, I tend to have my favorites. Of course, everybody does. Everybody has their my Arturo Fuente Hemingways are my favorites, and also I've been really into the Nub Habano wrapper, which I like because it's a little spicy.
You gave me a nub, didn't you,
the
other day? So I have to say, Johnny, I said I love the camaraderie of the cigar world, and I have cigar buddies, but Johnny has been my first cigar friend. It's like someone who's been a friend beyond... Johnny. It's Johnny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, back at you because we have a good time.
Right. So, there was a point to this. What was the
I'm
point?
Sorry.
Right.
I interrupted
you need more.
There.
We're drinking Napoleon brandy. You need.
And
more
I'm
brandy.
drinking vodka, but
makes the show better.
Yeah. Right. So we've been exploring. He lives way up at the top of Manhattan. I live in Harlem, but in a part of Harlem that's not the popular part of Harlem. And we meet at cigar lounges up in our area that no one else that we know will bother to come to. There's Papa Juan by Yankee Stadium.
Yeah,
We
that's
just went the
nice.
other day. There's Harlem Cigar Bar that used to be Papa Juan in Harlem, but he sold it. And then Cave, right,
Now,
like-
Cave
like-
is in Inwood. Now, you guys, there's a lot of New Yorkers who've lived there their whole life, and they don't know what the hell Inwood is. Inwood is the top of Manhattan. It's above Washington Heights, and it is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. There's parks all over.
I wouldn't necessarily it's gorgeous. I would say it's very vibrant and it's really wonderful. I wish I lived up there. Where I live is nowhere near as vibrant as where he lives.
Well, we have right in front of my apartment building is a beautiful place called Fort Tryon Park. It was really a fort, and above that is a place called the Cloisters, and it's one of the highest points in Manhattan. And there's the Cloisters. That's in front of my apartment. Behind my apartment is the Inwood Park, which is a 100-acre forest. It's a natural forest, and it's the last forest left in New York.
No,
And
I think Prospect Park has a natural forest.
But that's
in
not
it
in
too.
Manhattan.
Okay. You said in New York.
in
Manhattan.
New York. Hey, there's New York and New York City. There's Manhattan.
It's
and
like,
there's
it's like I
everything
say
else.
when I would say to people, "Oh, I live in Park Slope." Oh, it's like it's like, "Do you live in the city?" I live in Park Slope. It's like, yeah,
No,
Brooklyn is.
I'm
it's
very,
the city.
I'm very much a dilettante in that. Yes, I live in Manhattan. I'm a Manhattanite. But,
Interesting aside, I just read a New York Times article. The condos and properties that are selling the quickest are farther out in Queens and Brooklyn. The properties that are staying on the market and selling below asking are actually like Midtown.
Yeah, because the
financial
prices are so high.
But it's also people. It's not a quality. It's actually now in Brooklyn and Bronx and
Yeah.
Upper
It's a
Manhattan. There's a
neighborhood.
quality of life.
Yeah,
that
well,
they're- yeah.
It's
Having-
changing.
Having
Yeah,
grown
yeah.
up in an Italian neighborhood, I know all about the neighborhood. Hey, I want to tell everybody we're halfway through our show. You're listening to the Johnny Mandolin Show here on City World Radio. We have Artie from Cigar Inn, and we have Dean and his cigar tour, and we're just having fun. We're just having a good time here talking about cigars. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, I know this is like an impossible question to answer, but what's your favorite cigar, or at least one of your favorite cigars? Artie?
Okay. Don't think I'm being difficult, but I'm gonna give you my top three.
All right. That's perfect.
So usually when people ask me this question, there's usually three different classes, right? Because does it involve Cubans or not? A lot of people don't care about my Cuban choice because they don't know anything about them. But if we're talking Cubans, I love the Bolivar Libertadores. That's it's a juicy, it's very powerful, very delicious, changes up, and towards the end, it really beats the hell out of your palate, and I like that. I'm a bit of a cigar masochist, so the spices.
So you like full body?
Yeah. The spice is very, very palatable for me. And if we're talking about domestic, the Padron 1964 Diplomaticos, if there was one cigar I could probably choose, smoke my whole life from now till whatever. That's it. The Diplomatico is absolutely magnificent cigar. It's everything. Pretty much with that cigar, everything I love for that cigar is 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? It's got the greatest draw, the complexity, the depth, the evolution, plus the flavor is always kind of keeps you entertained. It doesn't stay the same, and that's unbelievable to me. So I've never had a bad one. Now the third school of thought is if we're not talking about price, if we're talking about like if there's no upper limit, right? I gotta say the Cohiba Bejiques. Those are some
Cuban.
Yeah, right. Because that's also Cuban, but that's if we're saying price is not an issue, right? Cause,
So what would the price be?
those I would say right now you can find them around 100 euros for
A stick.
about 80 euros to 100 something, 110 euros depending on the size for each stick. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are absolutely amazing. I have three.
So
of those.
may I ask you,
Yeah.
what's the oldest cigar you've ever smoked? Because I can't believe you can curate like cigars from like you can wine. Like there are cigars from the 30s people have, the 40s, the 50s.
You asked the right guy. So check this out. Here's the thing. I'm not going to lie to you. So as far as smoking goes, I haven't smoked them because I have an issue. I'm a hoarder. So I have about 800 cigars in my collection, and I have a couple of pre-embargoes and a couple of aged cigars that I probably will never smoke unless like I have a kid or something.
Yeah, they're collector's items.
Yeah. So, for instance, I have these 5 cigars. I can't really read you off the names of the companies off the top of my head because Most of them don't exist anymore, but they're from the early 1900s.
So my brother is a wine collector.
Yeah.
And if you collect old wines, you have to take the chance that it has become vinegar, even though you've paid hundreds or thousands of dollars. Is that true with old cigars too?
Absolutely. So these cigars from the 1900s, those are non-smokable.
Oh.
They are
They're artifacts.
Yes, they're
Yeah,
strictly
artifacts.
just
Okay.
like historical objects to me. I keep them,
Yeah.
stored away.
They're like a 1920s beaded gown where if you
Exactly.
wore it, it would fall apart, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can look at it.
Yeah, it's a great
okay,
talking piece,
yeah.
and I also have a couple of humidors from the 1920s to the 1940s. In between that range, I think one of them is actually 50s. And so I like the antique stuff, and you'd be surprised they're not that expensive. But yeah, so those cigars are ancient. I opened them and I played around with them a little bit, and they were literally just turning to dust in my hand, so I don't touch them anymore.
Yeah, okay.
But as far as smokable goes, I have these Partagas Aristocrats from 1962. I got them, actually. One of the members at our lounge is appraiser at Sotheby's, right? So as a present, I gave him a bunch of Cubans, and as a present, he gave me this box with 9 of these cigars.
Wow.
So those are... I don't want to waste too much time going into the story of how they were obtained, but let's just say they were really taken care of from that point when they were purchased to when I got them. They're nice and soft. And speaking of wine, since those cigars were kept in such good conditions, they smell a little bit like wine. Like you get this nice fermented smell coming off of them.
So once in my life, my brother brought us a wine that I don't know how old it was, and he decanted it, and it had an amber color.
Really?
And a taste that was, to me, I am totally not a wine guy, but I got it. It was like really incredible.
Was it sweet?
I don't remember. It was so long ago.
But it was very nice and complex, huh?
Yeah, and it was, this is, I get where if you collect and it works, then it's really extraordinary.
It's again, you have the risk of getting vinegar. You know what I mean? And you hear stories all the time of guys that have like these extensive wine collections in several places across the U.S. Like some of these guys actually walk into my store, and you hear these stories, and they're like, "Yeah, so I bought all these bottles. They're worth about $15,000 each, and I opened one of them up the other day, and it was spoiled." And I'm like, "Oh Jesus," you know what I mean? That's why for me, my cigars, because I age a lot, its uptake is very important.
Right.
I check them every single day because. You give them a week, mold, mites, it's like everybody, nature's just trying to make them go bad. And
So you did ask what our top 3 was.
sorry.
I am
Yes.
completely the opposite. I am a value cigar smoker. I drink, I smoke, I socialize, and I know what I like. And I am totally not a full-bodied guy. I'm a medium to mild guy.
Okay.
So the first cigar I knew I consistently loved was an Ashton Cabinet. I mean, the most consistent mild cigar.
Don't mean to interrupt you, but that is the second cigar I ever smoked in my life.
Yeah.
So I get
And now I try different things, but my basic Connecticut is something really rare, and an ode to Johnny's Italian past is the Romeo e Giulietta Capulet, which I can only get through FamousSmoke.com. And my favorite, my go-to Maduro for every day is the Montague, which is, I guess,
You're still fighting that battle.
Yeah, right. I'm still fighting the battle. Maybe I'm Shakespeare. I don't know, but
Do you know the story behind that? I find it very fascinating where the name Romeo and Juliet and Monte Cristo came from.
I'd love to know.
Yeah, so check this out. Back in the day, obviously, there's no entertainment. Like, if you go into a factory nowadays, like, let's say the Drew Estate factory, it's like an office building. It's like Silicon Valley corporate type thing. It's like up to date, best stuff. AC, televisions, music, whatever. Back in the day, they didn't have any of that. It was pretty much just like a mansion that they would convert into a factory. So they would have each roller would take a couple coins out of their weekly pay, and they would pay somebody to read the paper and to read many novels. And some of the most popular ones that they would read in these Havana factories was Romeo and Juliet and The Count of Monte Cristo. And that's where actually the names came from. Yeah.
Wow.
I love that story.
Thank you.
That's really
it's made this whole
interesting,
night worth it. That has made this whole night
Now
worth
you know.
it. Yeah, right.
And now you know the whole story.
Right.
Only on City World Radio. So, it's interesting. So I want you to continue because you mentioned this particular cigar, but what are your other?
Well, so I said the Ashton and the Capulet and Montague. It's really hard for me because I'm not that complex. I just love the experience. And cigarette smokers will come up to me and say, when they hear I'm a cigar smoker, say, right, you don't inhale? It's like, no. Like, what's the point? It's like, and I'll tell you, cigarette smoking is a nervous habit. Cigar smoking is a hobby. It's
Very relaxed.
But it's about buying, storing, occasion, the liquor that accompany. It's a whole experience. The company that you do.
Yeah, it's
the venue.
It's an event.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, it is.
No, I totally agree. And for me, there's a lot more to smoking a cigar than just lighting it. And I mean, in New York, I have my social world here. In California, not so much, but I also have the advantage of, in California, a cold day in January or February is like 68 degrees.
Yes,
so I have a nice patio. I sit and pour my wine and
Show off.
Yeah, sit there, smoke my cigar.
But I told Johnny this many times. I lived in Northern California and Southern California, and as an Easterner, I just can't handle nice weather all year round. It's so uninteresting.
I understand
but
that.
the one thing,
seasons
one of the good things about it is smoking outside. It
Well,
really
last time
is,
I was there was February. It was 72 degrees. I was on my patio with a Italian Chianti and a really good Arturo Fuente, and that was pretty good for me. I think my favorite three, it's hard for me to pick three again because I have so many I like. I go through phases. Lately, it's been the Nub with the Habano wrapper. Very good. I like spicy cigars. I used to smoke a lot of Maduros. I don't so much anymore.
So I want to ask you why, because I'm interested, because I consider Habano between Connecticut and Maduro and spiciness. So tell me about that.
Well, I like the spiciness. I like the flavor of it. Like I said, I used to smoke a lot of Maduros, but they got a little too strong for me. And I still like a Maduro, but once in a while. I think it's the difference between drinking maybe a red wine and a really 18-year-old whiskey or something.
Right.
So I like the Nub Habanos. Now, those of you who are not cigar smokers, but I know you're listening in, the Nub is a very short cigar. And it's nubular, but it's also a very long smoke because it's got a big ring gauge, meaning it's fat, and it smokes slowly. It's a great cigar. My all-time favorite is still the Arturo Fuente Hemingway bestseller, which I buy by the box, and that's still my favorite. And then lately, I've had a couple of third-tier cigars I've really liked. The Alec Bradley Nico Pura, and I like the Punch Grand Pura. Yeah, and I like, what's the other one I had the other day? Oh, I know. It's a La Gloria Cubana Series R.
Oh, that's very...
yeah, I haven't tried a La Gloria Cubana yet.
Well, here's the thing about La Gloria Cubana. They usually make a bit of a stronger smoke. So since your palate's tends to be in the mild to medium
but
range,
I would like to try it.
So you know what? After a nice steak, when you have a nice little bit of vodka or something, you'll enjoy it.
I have to say, mixing food and cigar is hard for me.
Yeah,
mixing drink and cigar but mixing food and cigar is hard for me.
I mean, trust me. I'm kind of like an animal, so I'll eat and smoke. But you know what I mean. After, so you have like a nice steak dinner,
right, yes,
and then you're nice and full, and then a dark oily.
I actually did that on Saturday. I bought a new a cruiser bike, and I toured I live at 138th. I toured from like the hundreds over on the west side. I bought a cigar at a little mom and pop place and went into Central Park and smoked. And then but before that, I asked the guy at the cigar place, where do you eat? And he said, La Tropical. And I had wonderful Caribbean food.
Wow.
And it was great to have a cigar afterwards.
Oh, I'll
it
bet.
really was.
Well, I'm the
It
same
really
way.
was.
I don't smoke and eat, but I smoke after I eat often, and that's really enjoyable for me. And I think that, like I said, there's just so many great choices today, and luckily where we live in New York, there's so many options. Plus, I do a lot of what's called online cigar buying, and I find some really good deals. Lately, I've been addicted to what's called cigarbid.com. They have this thing called free fall, and you pick a cigar you like, and the price drops, and it'll go down, 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 and all the way down, and then it resets back to the top. So you watch it 2 or 3 times. You kind of get where it's going to close out, and then you grab it. I just bought on a Cigar Bid free fall. I bought what did I just buy? Oh, Rocky Patel Decade. But it's a good cigar, and I got them for like $2.
You know, since you're a big fan of Romeo's, and we're talking about something that's not too expensive, I got to tell you, my bang for the buck cigar of last year, and I still think it's kicking ass. It's one of the best movers in our store. Is the Romeo and Juliet of Nicaragua? Have you had that one?
No, but I will. As I said, I will email myself.
Text them.
So I will remember.
Yeah, that Romeo and Julieta cigar, I gotta say, is one of my favorites. I don't smoke them too much now, and the only reason that is because I've already smoked about 1,000, and I just need to lay off. You know what I mean? So you need to take a break. But it's the cigar that I recommend very, very often. Just because it's very, very, very palatable in the fact that it's sweet, a little leathery, medium bodied, so it has just enough flavor where it's it's got a good amount of flavor without having too much pepper. You know what I mean? It's got a perfect balance. So if we're talking on the subject of things that are not too expensive but still are absolutely delicious and complex, that's my winner right there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've had it. It's really wonderful, and there's just so many great ones. Today I had what's the name of it? It's the flavor of Cuba. I can't remember the Spanish word. La Flor de...
That's flower, like leaf.
Yeah,
La
Flor
de...
Dominicana?
Or
La Flor Cuba?
No.
Casa Cuba?
It was La Flor de something.
La Flor Dominicana?
I don't know if it was Dominicana. It was... I wish I saved the wrapper.
So actually,
Cuba,
this is a great segue. There's an app where you take a picture of a cigar wrapper, and let me find it on yes. You take it's called Cigar Scanner.
Yeah,
it's an app.
This.
Cigar Scanner. You take a picture of your band, and then it will put it in memory.
Nice.
That's the thing. It's a great app for people like you who want to keep track, right? But for me, I feel like it'll put me into a spiraling depression if I actually see.
So
the
you're
record.
saying like neophyte?
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, okay. Let me see how many cigars.
Amateur.
No. How many cigars did I have in the last week? Oh, 60. Oh boy, you know what I mean? Like, it's just gonna. I don't even want to think about it.
So transitioning a little bit, I talked a little bit about my background and my entrance to cigars through my grandfather. But what's your best memory when you were young of a cigar, like when you first started out, or something that really was revolutionary? Artie, what do you think?
Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you exactly what comes to mind. And funny enough, that's that cabinet. So. I remember I had the Acid. That was the first cigar I ever tried because the story is I worked at this place called Cigar Emporium in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. And I wasn't particularly a cigar guy at all, but I was really good with electronic cigarettes. That's when they started becoming popular. And obviously I knew about the bongs and the pipes and the hookahs and all that. So what I would do is I would actually I would sell them, but then if somebody wanted the humidor, I'd follow them. And I learned a couple things about cigars, but I didn't really know it. I was just kind of like, what I heard, I would just replicate. So I tried the Acid because it was sweet, and then it was okay. And then I decided, let me try something that's not flavored, right? And then that was that cabinet. And I remember I was walking home from work from Bensonhurst to Sheepshead Bay, and I'm going home, and I'm smoking this cigar. And I don't know what it is, but I just can clearly remember that walk and how much I enjoyed it, and how much it kind of hit me what exactly is so nice about this. Because the acid, even though it's a great smoke and it's a good starter smoke, it doesn't really it encapsulates a kind of like more modern soul of the cigar, but the cabinet is traditional. It's more.
It's also very consistent.
Exactly,
very
exactly. So
consistent,
that cigar, I can remember that it was.
That's
really,
where I learned to appreciate premium.
Yeah.
Is that the consistency.
So I did smoke White Owls before that, just out of curiosity, and that was garbage. So,
I went through a little cigarillo phase, but I never went through a White Owl or a
Were you
Dutch
Clint
Masters.
Eastwood?
No. God, no. I
No.
forget what. Swisher Sweets. Oh my God!
Oh, yeah.
get out of here right now.
You're dismissed.
All right.
I would have.
So I would say one of my first cigar memories, and it's not about smoking, but I told you like the stereotype when I was growing up was the overweight Jewish or Italian guy, and
You talking to me? You
right,
talking
right,
to me?
Right. So I had an Uncle Norman. Uncle Norman was just wonderful. He was my father's brother, but my father was born 16 years after him. And we'd go over, and Uncle Norm be smoking cigars. It's like, hey, you little pisha, like that kind of thing. And back then, when they said stop smoking cigars, he turned to a pipe. That was okay. A pipe was okay, but it was like a warm fuzzy, because I didn't, as I said, my grandfather died before my cigar smoking grandfather died. So Uncle Norman was that,
Right.
that
The father figure, yeah.
or that warm uncle, figure, yeah.
Well, I have to say, I grew up with my grandfather in cigars, and all his friends, who were all old Italian guys from Sicily with cigars, and it was a very warm environment too. And I look at it. I can't say I smoke a lot of cigars, although I'm doing them more now. But I try to do about 2 to 3 a week, and I'm getting to increase that. See, in New York, we have a problem. It's called winter. So you can't just go sit outside and have a cigar. But as the summer comes, I tend to have 1 or 2 a night and get out. I have a beautiful patio at my apartment in New York City. But and of course in California, you pretty much can go out anytime almost.
Strangely enough, I have a beautiful backyard in my Harlem condo.
We're so lucky to have.
I've been waiting to invite you because
I'm coming.
You will come.
But our friends in California and in the suburbs across the country have no idea. In New York, a patio, you can pay $250,000 more for an apartment because you have a 6 foot by 3 foot patio.
Right.
I mean, it's outdoor space is precious. So we have a great patio where I am. But yeah, I think I always remember my grandfather. One of the cigars he loved, which I actually still like, was an Italian cigar called a Di Noble.
De Nobles.
And they'd soak them in either anisette or rum.
Of nobility, of
it was a little small, hard cigar, but it was a good flavor. And
I have to say, Johnny, I learned from you that small cigars aren't necessarily short smokes.
No, well, not a nub.
For me, being Jewish about the value thing, it's like short means, But I've learned that it's a different smoke. It's a completely different smoke.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those nubs are packed to the brim. That's why, if you guys are fans of a cigar that is really burns for a long time, Casa Magna is similar. It's the regular size cigar, but I'm telling you, you buy one of those, like the Colorado, it'll last you 3 hours.
Oh, what's it called?
Really?
Casa Magna. It's made by Quesada Cigars. It is packed to the brim. I you know what?
But is it free smoking? Can you actually create
No.
smoke from
That's the
it?
thing. This is why I find it to be like this mysterious ass smoke, because it pulls great.
Yeah,
It pulls a bit, you know what I mean?
A bad
That's
draw
a
on the
big thing
cigars.
for me. I love watching the smoke.
Yeah.
To me, it's, as I say, it's about the process, and the process, the end process is watching the smoke come out. I just love it.
So on that note, check this out. This is something really interesting that somebody pointed out to me, and it blew my mind a little bit. When you puff on that cigar, what you'll notice is this. You'll see smoke coming out of the end where you're smoking from,
Right.
and some smoke coming off of the foot. that's lit. What you'll notice is the smoke coming off the foot is going to have a slight bluish gray tinge, and the smoke coming out of the cigar on the end that you're smoking from is going to be white.
White, yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I have no idea why that happens.
Interesting.
Well, no, one is actually burning, and the other is filtered through the whole cigar, all that tobacco.
Yeah, but for me, at least, maybe I don't know. It's a little counterintuitive because I feel like going through the cigar would get darker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's great. Well, listen, folks, I'm so glad you joined us for Cigar Night here on the Johnny Mandolin Show. I want to thank Artie. I want to thank Dean. Most important question, Dean, will you come back?
Absolutely.
Artie, will you come back?
Absolutely.
Artie's already been back.
Only
so.
if Dean comes back.
Yeah. So you're stuck now.
You're like all about cigars, all about experience.
Yeah.
It's like perfect.
It's great, yeah.
And I want to thank my listening audience, and we love it. And please email me. It's John, JOHN, CEXTON, like my record label, John Sexton at AOL.com, and Sexton Records is our sponsor of our show.
So just really quickly before we finish up here, I do have an Instagram that I wanted to just tell real quick. It's Ashhole NYC. That's ASHHOLE NYC on Instagram, and I do reviews every single day on that Instagram page. I'm up to like 65 reviews. So pretty much, if you are interested, they're really, really in depth. Sometimes I do them randomly. You stop by the page. Again, that's Ashhole NYC, and you can check out what I'm doing. I have all the reviews that I've done in my story highlights.
And I have to say, you really are an Ashhole.
Oh yeah, the name is perfect.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. I want to thank Jade, our engineer, who keeps us on the air and honest. We love Jade. Jade, you're coming out for cigars with us tonight. She says no. And thanks, everybody, for listening. Dean's going to be back, and maybe Artie can host a show for me or two. So thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it. Johnny Mandolin Show on City World Radio Network. John Sexton at AOL.com with a C. Bye, everybody. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
Arrivederci.